Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to this February 1st, 2015 edition of Nightcast. Opening story for tonight comes out of Egypt, where Peter Greste, the Al-Jazeera journalist, freed by Egypt. Orla Gurin has this opening story.
Huddled in a cage, a damaging image from the new Egypt. Many believe that freedom of speech was on trial here, as well as 3 respected reporters.
We begin with breaking news out of Egypt. One of our journalists, Peter Greste, has been freed from prison after 400 days behind bars.
This was how the news was announced on Al-Jazeera. Soon after his release, Peter Greste told colleagues the fight must go on to free Mohammed Fahmy and Beher Mohammed, who remain prisoners.
The second sentence after he'd said how relieved he was, we've got to get our 2 guys out who are still in prison. And that is the problem, really. We'd like to be pleased and happy for Peter, but we are still sitting here thinking, how do we make sure Mohammed Fahmy and Beher Mohammed follow him out of that prison door?
This is where all 3 have been held, at the forbidding Torah prison. Peter Greste was removed in secret and within hours boarded a plane. Well, for Peter Greste and his family, the ordeal is finally over. They never expected it to take so long. He spent more than a year behind bars at this maximum security prison complex. He and his colleagues insist the only thing that they are guilty of is doing their jobs.
This 4-fingered salute.
Here he was in action in Cairo, reporting on a protest by supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood. Egypt accuses Al-Jazeera of being a mouthpiece for the banned Islamists. Many believe that Peter Greste and his colleagues got caught in the crossfire. A global campaign by media organisations kept the jailed reporters in the headlines and President Sisi under pressure. A former advisor told us the president thought locking them up was a costly error.
He felt at that time that this is something we shouldn't get into, and we shouldn't put it this way, because we are paying a very high price for something that shouldn't happen this way.
So President Sisi was concerned about the international fallout?
Yes, indeed.
Tonight it's believed that Mohammed Fahmy, a dual national, could soon be deported to Canada. But in a tweet from hospital where he's been receiving treatment, he suggested it would cost him his Egyptian citizenship. But the wife of Beher Mohammed, who has no foreign passport, told us she's worried that he will be left to languish behind bars.
Why can't my children see their father? He's in his prime, and he's been inside the 4 walls of a prison for a year. What did he do wrong? He's just a journalist.
The Al-Jazeera case has sent a message to all journalists in Egypt, and campaigners warn that press freedom is still under attack.
And friends, in Europe, the Greek Finance Minister Varoufakis, Europe comes first. The economist turned finance minister seeking to renegotiate Greece's huge debt obligations says his priority is the well-being of all Europeans, and he's ruled out accepting more bailout cash. After talks with his French counterparts, Yanis Varoufakis said a new debt deal was needed within months. Michael Sapin said France was ready to help Greece settle with its creditors. Greece's leftist anti-austerity Syriza party won Sunday's election a week ago today with a pledge to write off half the debt. Greece still has a debt of 315 billion euros, which is about a whopping 175% of gross domestic product. despite some creditors having written down debts in a renegotiation in 2012. Beginning his first swing around European capitals and financial hubs in Paris, Mr. Varoufakis is to travel next to London and Rome for more talks. His comments follow remarks yesterday by new Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, who said he was confident Greece could reach a deal with its creditors. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has ruled out debt cancellation, saying creditors had already made concessions. At a news conference in which Mr. Sapin reiterated that there is no question of canceling the Greek debt, Mr. Varoufakis said Greece and its partners had to proceed, quote, with one objective in mind, the prosperity of the average European citizen. He added that he wanted a new plan for fiscal stimulus in place by the end of May, with repayment of existing debt tied to Greece's ability to restore growth. He ruled out Greece receiving a new tranche of bailout package. It's not that we don't need the money. We're desperate because of certain commitments and liabilities that we have, he said. Drug addicts craving the next dose. What this government is all about is ending the addiction. And the caption that goes with this next photograph here, friends, that's part of this story, reads, Mr. Varoufakis said he would visit several European capitals, including Berlin, as he sought agreement on Greece's debt. He added he would negotiate separately with the European Commission, the IMF, and the European Central Bank, but not with the officials representing all three, the so-called Troika, which he described as, quote, a committee of technocrats. The Troika agreed on a 240 billion euro, that'd be the equivalent of 179 billion pounds or 270 billion Yankee dollars, the equivalent money, as a bailout with the previous Greek government. Austerity measures imposed in an effort to manage the debt have prompted outrage in Greece and led voters to reject the previous government. Instead, Greece convincingly voted Syriza into power after an election campaign dominated by the party's message of change. Sounds like a former United States political message, does it not? In the interviews in the German media published on Saturday, Mrs. Merkel said she still wants Greece to stay in the Eurozone, but did not envision fresh debt cancellation. Greece's current program of loans ends on the 28th of February, end of this month. A final bailout tranche of 7.2 billion euros was still to be negotiated, but the new government has already begun to roll back austerity measures. And the caption with this photograph in this same story, friends, asked, what does Greece owe? And if you're able to read those little numbers on this graphic, 50% total debt is 323 billion euros. They owe the IMF 10%. They owe the European Central Bank 6%. Other bonds, they owe 15%. The Greek banks, they borrowed 3% from there. Foreign banks, 1%. The Bank of Greece, 1%. Other loans, 3%. And so we'll be keeping an eye on that, because that's going to affect how United Europe shapes around, of course. I'm working on our new studio shots. I don't have them all in place yet. Let me Let's see, what have I got on that camera? We just zoom out and zoom out some more. Well, let's come on back in. Let's see, what have I got over here on this shot? Okay, that'll work just for something generic, our chart we've often used. Jordan vows that after the IS beheading of Japanese hostage Goto, that they want more. First of all, they want more information. Jordan has, and they vowed to do all it can. Jordan has vowed to do all it can to secure the release of a pilot captured by Islamic State after a video was released appearing to show the beheading of a Japanese hostage. Jordan echoed Japan in strongly condemning the murder of Kenji Goto. The pilot, the Jordanian pilot, Lieutenant Moaz Al, was captured when his plane came down in December on a mission to support the U.S.-led anti-IS military coalition. Jordan says it is willing to exchange an Iraqi prisoner for the pilot, the Jordanian pilot's safe return. Government spokesman Mohammed Al-Momini told the official Petra news agency the administration was doing, quote, everything it can to save the life and secure the release of its pilot. He said, all state organizations have been mobilized to secure the proof of life that we require so that he can be freed and returned to his home. And then now our closing story tonight, friends. U.S. growth slows in fourth quarter. The caption with this opening photograph for this story reads, lower fuel prices put more money in consumers' pockets in the last 3 months of 2014. And, you know, for all of us who make a certain average income, those lower prices are very welcome on a personal basis. But here's the story that goes with this. The world's largest economy expanded less than expected in the final 3 months of 2014, despite lower fuel prices boosting consumer confidence. And the U.S. posted annualized growth of 2.6% for the fourth quarter, lower than the 3% projected by economists. And friends, the facts of the last 3 months go hand in glove with a warning that many of us received decades ago, many of us who were alive to hear Mr. Herbert Armstrong as he would speak live and say, brethren, prepare to reduce your standard of living. He was speaking to those of us who were brethren in one of the congregations of the church he headed, and he gave us a grandfatherly warning to prepare to reduce our standard of living. Now, some of us have taken that to heart as we plan and do our different affairs and things, and perhaps some who have not may still have time to make some quick adjustments, because these stories, projections for 2015 start to sound like what Mr. Armstrong was saying may happen much this year. The lower than 3% projected by economists occurrence for the last 3 months of 2014, weaker than the 5% growth in the third quarter of 2014. However, the dramatic slide in fuel prices in recent months has put more money in consumers' pockets and allowed them to spend more. Consumer spending, which accounts for more than 2/3 of U.S. economic activity, rose by 4.3% in the fourth quarter, the fastest rise in nearly 9 years, and higher than the 3.2% for the third quarter. However, you know, friends, whenever you hear things happening, zooming much faster than they've traditionally happened, it oftentimes should put a red flag up in our minds like, oops, what's going on? What's happening? Because the way these things work, if things zoom up, sometimes they zoom back down. And zoom back down, they may keep going, and it may be a certain kind of a crash that can occur. Anyway, that's our news for Sunday night. Thanks for joining me tonight, friends. Be prepared, as Mr. Armstrong said, to reduce your standard of living. Some real good advice for us. And friends, that's it, as I said, for tonight, Sunday night, God willing, and the old creek don't rise. We'll be back again tomorrow night, Monday night, with the day's current news related to the Bible and prophecy here on Nightcast. That's where it is, that button right there. I was looking for my Nightcast logo slide earlier. So there it is. All right, friends, until tomorrow night, this is your host for Nightcast, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on cogtv.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the cogtv.org video archive.